Hey, this is Dena. Welcome to my bakery. Okay, clearly it's not a real bakery, and I'm not a professional baker, but I love baking. So today we're gonna make red velvet cake. So let's get started. You will need half a cup of butter. It should be room temperature and kind of soft. This could maybe be softer, but hopefully it'll work out. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. 1 cup of buttermilk. I have this in a coffee cup because I don't have buttermilk on hand, so I just took a cup of milk and added a cup of vinegar to it. That's going to basically make buttermilk. 1 tablespoon of vinegar. 2 eggs, which should also be at room temperature. 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. 2½ cups of flour. 1½ cups of sugar. Red food coloring, we're just gonna eyeball it with this stuff. The recipe calls for a teaspoon of kosher salt. This is regular table salt, so I'm gonna be using a little bit less. And finally, well, my oven's preheated. Anyway, finally, baking soda. Okay, so first we're gonna cream the butter and sugar. Yeah, the butter feels pretty soft, good. You never know. By the way, this is just a little Sunbeam mixer. What's pretty cool is that it's a stand mixer, but you can also detach that and use it as a regular mixer. So I think that's pretty cool. Takes a little bit of effort to get it back on. Okay. Okay, so I'm actually going to start mixing the butter first just to make sure it's all soft and everything. So we'll do that really quick. Scrape that down. That's being a little... Oh well, it'll get better when I add the sugar either way. So I'm just going to go a little bit more. In fact, you know what? I just got done pointing this out. I'm gonna go ahead and use it. There we go. That's like not quite enough. That's like not quite enough butter to really like cover the bottom of the bowl or anything like that. So it's just kind of in a little clump down there. So I think adding the sugar is going to help there. So we will just do that. Maybe a tiny bit too much, but who cares? I don't know if you can really ruin a recipe by adding just a little too much sugar. It's not one of those ingredients that can make or break how a recipe turns out, you know what I mean? All right, yeah. Adding the sugar definitely helped. Let's just scrape this down and make sure it's all on the bottom. There we go. Okay, now we add the eggs one at a time. So you mix after each addition of egg. Okay, 1 more egg. Or egg, as Mr. Garrison calls them.
1 little egg.
Ah, that's okay. You can just fish it on out. It's fine. Okay, and now we combine this egg. Okay. Scraping down the bowl, you have to do that. In fact, I think I'm gonna run this just a little bit longer just to make sure everything is all nicely combined like it's supposed to be. Okay, that should be better. So now we add, well, now more vinegar to the buttermilk. Let me go ahead and stir that. Yeah, see, you notice it's all chunky. I don't know if it's exactly like buttermilk, but at least for the purpose of using it in a recipe, it works just like buttermilk. So we're gonna add that. So now is when we add the food coloring, and like I said, we're just gonna play this by ear. I've never actually used this particular kind before, and does it pour at all? It does, slowly. There we go. Apparently, traditionally red food coloring wasn't really that, or red food coloring. Traditionally, red velvet cake wasn't that red. It just like turned a little bit of red because of the cocoa that you put in it. And at some point, people just decided to go all the way with it and add a ton of food coloring. So, you know, if you don't like food coloring, feel free to leave it out. If you don't care if it looks like a traditional red velvet cake. That is clearly not enough, because that's going to look like even less once I add it to everything else. Come on. This is the paste type of food coloring, so ideally you aren't supposed to have to use as much as you would if it was the liquid kind, but still kind of have to add a lot for red velvet cake. People tend to want it very, very red. This is not turning red at all. What the hell? Okay, well, whoops. Okay, well, add more. I'm not too afraid of it personally, and some people are like kind of don't like the idea of using more chemicals than they need to or whatever. I totally get that, but I mean, how often do you really have red velvet cake? I'm sure it doesn't hurt to have it once in a while. And that was where I find out that I didn't open this enough, and I'm gonna get it all over my hands. Oh God, I'm gonna look like I killed someone. Oh boy. Killed. Great. Gotta wash my hands. Okay, so I washed my hands. I got a fork. And I'm going to use the back of it to dig this out. I may have to use this whole jar. I bought like a whole new jar of food coloring because I wasn't sure if I had enough already. And man, now I'm really glad I did. Can't believe how little color I'm getting here. It's getting there. It's starting to get there now. It's still kind of pink though, and you know, I'm gonna have to add it to once I add it to the other ingredients, it's gonna be even more. God, look at that fork. Look like I stabbed somebody with the back of this fork somehow. Let's just use the rest of this, screw it. Like I said, you know, it's not like you eat red velvet all the time. Does anyone else still think of steel magnolias whenever someone mentions red velvet cake? If you didn't see it or you don't remember, it was there was a wedding scene where the groom's cake was looked like a realistic armadillo. And it was red velvet cake, so whenever someone cut into the cake, it was all bright red inside. It was such a hideous cake. Technically really well made though, like it really looked like an armadillo.
Thanks, Weezy.
Nothing like a good piece of ass.
That's pretty red. You know, if it's slightly brown, whatever. It's not the end of the world. I'm not gonna go to the, let me actually see if I can get maybe a little more off the back of this fork. I'm not gonna go to the trouble of like digging up more red food coloring to put in here. Like this, I use this entire, it's small and everything, but I did use this entire little jar. Wow, okay. It's red, it's gonna be very red. Okay. Okay, so back to the butter mixture. We're gonna sift in some cocoa powder and 3 tablespoons is what I'm supposed to add. This is based on John Cannell's recipe from Preppy Kitchen, and if I remember correctly, his cake turned out a little too brown because he added 3, so I think I'm gonna add 2. I hope it's still chocolatey enough. This is what I use for sifting. It's a kind of an all-purpose, really it's a spaghetti strainer, but you know, it does the trick, so why not? So I'm just going to use 2, maybe I'll split the difference and use 2.5. That's not my criticism, by the way. He said himself that he thought it turned out a little too brown. In fact, if you watch the video where he made it, he actually went back and remade the cake because he's like, wow, this is not red enough. So here, yeah, I'm gonna split the difference and I'm gonna add 2.5 cups of cocoa. I hope that works out. We'll see. I say that a lot. Okay, so just, cocoa powder is notorious for clumping up. Yeah, look at all those little clumps. So I'm just gonna kind of rub those through because we do want them in there. We just didn't want them in clump form. All right. So we mix this up. Ooh, on low first. That's gonna, oh, brown cloud. Yeah, that is looking very dark and chocolatey. Maybe I should have just stuck with the 2 tablespoons. We'll see. Unlike John Cannell, I am not going to make it again if it doesn't turn out perfectly. It's just going to be what it is, and consider this a do as I say, not as I do kind of situation. So let me give that one more little mix just to be sure. You don't really have to worry about over mixing as long as you haven't added the flour yet. You definitely can over mix when there's flour involved. Has to do with over developing the gluten or something like that. It makes your cake take on a heavier consistency like bread. Okay. Yeah, that's very brown. I couldn't resist tasting that. It's chocolatey, but not like super chocolatey. Okay, it's time to mix the dry ingredients. Before I do anything else, I'm gonna clean up a little bit and get these bloody utensils out of here. I'm a little worried I might get red food dye on something. So let me just dispose of that really quick and then we will continue. Guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to add the vanilla. Is that just a classic baking mistake or what? I just eyeball it, to be honest. I don't know if you can really add too much vanilla. I mean, I'm sure you can. It's, you know, strong tasting and it's got alcohol in it. So I would imagine that in theory you could add too much, but I've never been that worried about it. Every baker I've ever watched on YouTube just eyeballs the vanilla and stupid thing is not normally this hard to get on. It's only because I'm filming. So it turns out that I also misread the sugar amount, so we're just gonna add that right now. Oh, that mixture is really thick now. Now to add the dry ingredients. Honestly, a lot of times I will just put my sifter over the bowl and I'll just add it that way. But with this one, you have to add it in stages, so you do need an extra bowl for this one. So we sift the dry ingredients together here. So 2.5 cups of flour. John Canelgo uses a scale, and I'm sure that's the better way to do it, but I don't know, for some weird reason I'm just stubborn about it. So I just use the method where, here, let me put that so you could see a little better. I just use the method where you carefully measure it out. You do want to be careful to not use too much flour, but I just use the method where I just try not to let it get all packed. So I need 2.5 cups here. This, I love this thing. I need more of these, but that's 2 cups, so that'll be most of it. You just kind of sprinkle it in. Naturally, it's going to get all over the table because that's just the nature of flour. And kind of gently level it off. You want to, oh, yeah, there it goes all over the table. That is roughly 2 cups, I think. So we're gonna put that in here. And then we just need another 1/2 cup. So I'm actually gonna try, oh boy, this might get all over the table. I'm gonna try, I'm almost out of flour here. I'm gonna try pouring this into the measuring cup and we'll see how it goes. I feel like that might be the best way to do this. Nope, yeah, it's getting all over. Tiny bit more maybe. Actually, oh boy, yeah, that's a little too much. Kind of level that off right into the bag. I don't know if you can see this. I'm trying to show you as much of the process as I can, but it's hard to stay on camera. Actually bought another bag of flour for this recipe because I didn't think I would have enough, but I'm not even quite using up what's in the bag. There's like another tablespoon or so in there. I suppose I could toss it, but I don't feel right doing that. Clean up a little bit here. Got flour everywhere. Okay, so it calls for a teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm honestly out of, this is the only salt I have. Otherwise I wouldn't be using a salt shaker. It seems a little, I don't know, ghetto. I don't know, whatever. That's roughly half. I'll add a little more in maybe there. And 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Basically, this baking soda is going to react with the vinegar that's in the wet mixture, and that's going to cause it to, you know, fluff up and everything. Just sift this in here. It takes a little while. I need to get myself a real sifter. Almost didn't need to sift that. There wasn't any clumps. I'll just give that a little whisk to make sure everything is mixed up nicely. Okay, now back to this butter mixture again. I'm going to start with the wet. I'm actually not sure if you're supposed to start with wet or dry, but I'm going to start and you add half the wet. Oh, that looks, that sure looks something, doesn't it? And I really should have had a paper towel in here to deal with this. Mix that up nicely. Yeah, it's really just better to detach this thing and use it this way. In fact, why do I even have this on the base? There we go. Should have just done this in the first place, but whatever. That's kind of an interesting rosy color right now. So let's add, then we add half the dry ingredients. That's probably not the best angle. There we go. Hopefully that wasn't too much more than half. And the rest of the wet. God, that really looks like I freaking killed somebody and put their blood in that cup. That is looking nice and red, I have to say. Okay, and let's see if it still looks nice and red after I add the rest of the flour. This is a process for me, you guys. This is my first video, so hopefully future ones will go a little more smoothly. That is some very thick batter. I believe that's how John Cannell's looked though, so let me make sure I got much of that off the beat. Whoa. I'm gonna be cleaning up so much red stuff later. Story of my life. Okay. Just gonna, if there's anything left here, I'm just gonna mix it by hand. Whoops, there's a little bit of chocolate at the bottom. Yeah, that is nice. Look, it's almost kind of frothy. It's got a lot of bubbles in it from that. And that's a pretty good red color too. I think it gets the color gets a little deeper when you bake it, like more saturated, more vibrant. I guess we'll find out. It's also the first time I've ever made a red velvet cake, so I have also got that. I've also got that going on. Okay, so I've got my baking pans. This recipe is actually supposed to make a three-layer cake if you're using 6-inch pans. I just want 2 layers because I'm just making this for me and my husband, and we don't need a full-sized cake. I sprayed the inside with this baking spray. It's basically baking spray, but it has flour in it, so you don't have to add flour like you normally do with cakes. And whatever doesn't fit in those pans, I will put in these. I will make cupcakes with whatever's left. So let's see. Oh yeah, that batter is really bubbly. I think you're supposed to fill these roughly halfway up. Maybe 2/3. I really hope I didn't let this sit too long. You're supposed to like immediately put it in the pans, and I had to stop filming for a second and It's a long story. You don't want to know the behind the scenes shit. I don't know. I mean, it's okay if they're a little tall. I was actually contemplating, wow, this is actually, it's okay if they're a little bit, the layers are a little thick, because I was contemplating possibly cutting them in half anyway and making a 4-layer cake out of it, but we'll see. I guess a scale would have been a good idea for this, but oh, it is what it is. Okay, well, let's just see. Yeah, I think that's roughly filled halfway up, maybe 2/3. It, like I said, I don't mind if they come out a little bit thick. I just don't want them to overflow. So we'll just see how that goes, and whatever's left is going to go in. I'm gonna use a spoon for that. I think this spatula might be a little too heavy-handed for these little muffin tins. So John Cannell actually, when he makes it, he reserves just enough to make a cupcake out of before he puts what's left in the cake pans, and the cupcake then becomes crumbled up into cake crumbs, and he uses that to add to the outside of the cake layer, because that's traditionally how you decorate a red velvet cake. You put cake crumbs on the outside, and I plan on doing that with this, so the cupcakes might not rise whoa, that made a mess. The cupcakes might not rise as well as the, yeah, I knew I wasn't gonna need all of these cups. I just in case. Oh, that is very red. This batter turned out very red. I'm pretty happy about that. I think I started to say something and I didn't finish the thought, so whatever it was, I hope it wasn't too important. So also we have our, I didn't mention the cake strips. I'm using cake strips. They are just like fabric strips that have been soaked in water, and what that does is it makes it so your cakes don't come out all domed. They come out with a very flat top. And it's wonderful. I don't know why more bakers don't use them. Maybe they know something I don't, but I'm always seeing like professional bakers baking cakes with a big dome on top, and then they cut the dome off, and I'm like, why don't you just use cake strips? I just tasted the batter and it is really good. It's only lightly chocolate, but chocolate is definitely there. So I'm gonna put these in the oven. It's supposed to take about 30 to 35 minutes. I will not show myself putting these in the oven because my stove kind of needs to be cleaned, so you get the idea. You don't really need to see that. So I will show you what all of this looks like when it comes out of the oven. Okay, so here's how everything looks. Maybe it does look a little bit brown. I don't know, maybe it'll look better on the inside, or hell, let's see. Oh, you know what? I was gonna make crumbs out of one of these anyway. Let's just see. You know what? It's still red. It's a dark red, but I would still call that red. So yeah, okay, I think this was kind of a success. I maybe could have used a little less cocoa powder, but it's fine. These came out pretty good. The top is the shape on the top is a little wonky. So I'm actually gonna have to trim these, unfortunately. I'm not sure what happened. It might be just because I put a little too much, I may have put too much batter in these. I know I did kind of intentionally overfill it a little because I thought maybe I wanted thick layers, but I think that just, I think in the end, I'm just gonna have to trim them anyway, so nah. Don't worry, it'll get used. Actually, maybe I'll just use that for the crumbs on the outside. So yeah, they look a little bit wonky, so I'm gonna have to trim the tops, and which is for the best really, because I was saying that I only wanted 2 layers because I didn't want a really big cake, but then here if I'm overfilling the layers anyway. But yeah, it didn't overfill to the point where it like, you know, it didn't overflow. It just kind of went all the way to the top of the pan, and which is what I wanted, but again, I didn't realize it was gonna, and I feel like it's maybe a little over baked on the edges a little, so yeah, I'm gonna trim these. Now, if you want, you can 100% frost these as soon as they're cooled off enough if that's what you want to do. In fact, they would probably be cooled off enough by the time you finished making the icing. But I prefer to work with frozen cake layers because they don't fall apart as easily. You can, you know, handle them a lot and they don't break, or, you know, you don't get crumbs. You don't get as many crumbs when they're frozen. So I'm not going to demonstrate it here because these aren't quite cool yet, and it's getting kind of late, so I need to stop filming for today pretty soon. But what I'm going to do is when these are cooled off completely, I'm going to wrap them in 2 layers of plastic wrap, and that will keep them all nice and, you know, they won't dry out or anything. And I will just leave these in the freezer overnight, and then I will make the icing and ice these tomorrow. So yeah, we will pick up with this tomorrow when I do that. Okay, welcome to part 2. It is the next day and I'm ready to make the cream cheese frosting. For that, we will need 3 sticks of butter, 2 8-ounce packages of cream cheese, 1.5 pounds of powdered sugar. I have a little more than that in this bag and a little less in this bag, so I think I'm gonna start with this and then just add however much it seems to need afterwards. And vanilla extract and salt. So I'm gonna use my Vivo stand mixer for this part, and just so you know, this looks kind of wonky, and it's only because I ran it through the dishwasher and I wasn't supposed to, so it's discolored, but it's fine. So, this butter could be a little bit softer. Cream cheese feels pretty soft, but yeah, well, you know, it'll work either way. It just might give me a little more trouble than usual. So yeah, this seems like a lot, so I don't know if this is gonna end up being way more frosting than I need, but I don't want to mess up the ratio, so I'm just going to make a whole batch, and whatever I don't use will go in the freezer. I'm gonna have like leftover cake anyway, so maybe I'll make cake pops sometime in the future, not immediately, of course. Yeah, this one in particular feels kind of hard. I think I'm gonna go ahead and try to like beat this butter first. Oh yeah, I don't know about that. It's getting there. Yeah, butter's a little stiff, unfortunately. I thought I had left it out long enough, but apparently not. Okay, I think it's getting a little better now. Yeah, there we go. It's starting to spread around. Okay, I'm going to add the cream cheese now. Should have opened these ahead of time. Live and learn. Really doesn't like to come out sometimes. And there's a little stuck to the packaging, so I'm gonna try to, that wasn't really enough to bother with. Once again, not really enough to have bothered with, but I did anyway, so. Okay, let's see how this works out. Like I said, it felt like it was softer than the butter, but it still might not be as soft as I needed. We'll see what happens. Oof. Yeah, it needs to be beat up some more. Scrape the bottom of this bowl. Yeah, even the butter is still kind of... Really, I just kind of flattened it out. I didn't really soften it very much. Just kind of flattened it onto the bottom of the bowl. So I'm gonna turn this up a little bit higher because it really does need to beat it like it owes me money. Oh. So it's getting there. Yeah, that might be pretty good actually. I'll probably beat it a little bit more just to kind of see if I can get it to soften up even a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add the, I'm not gonna measure this. Go ahead and add, whoops, the salt and the vanilla just to make sure I don't forget again. Oh, well, that was kind of a lot. I'll just leave it, it's probably fine. I guess we're about to find out if you can add too much vanilla. Ooh, it smells very vanilla-y. Just gonna let this go for a little bit to see if I can soften it up a bit more. Oh, it turns off as you're lifting it. That's, I'm not crazy about that, but whatever. I guess I never noticed that before. This is the first time I've ever used this for cake frosting, so. All right, that's a lot softer than it was. Oh yeah, I barely taste the vanilla. Maybe it's a little stronger than it normally would be, but by the time I add the sugar in, I think it'll be fine. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna start with adding this. And I guess I don't want to add all of it at one time. If only because it'll get all over the place. And so anytime you add flour or powdered sugar into a mixer, you really want to cover it up so it doesn't fly everywhere. And start on slow besides. How does that look? Ah, there we go. Oops. Messed up, I hit the wrong lever. All right. Yeah, that's gonna need a lot more powdered sugar, but yeah, it's getting all soft now, which is good. Oh God, powdered sugar everywhere. Okay. Oh God, you can see I don't know if you can see that, but there's like a cloud of powdered sugar coming out from behind the towel. Okay, scrape the bowl. I hope you could see into this pretty well. Maybe I shouldn't have used such a big mixing bowl for this. It's very much trial and error. Yeah, that's very, that definitely needs some more. Not very stiff yet. But we'll get there. Tastes good though. What a shock. butter, cream cheese, and powdered sugar. It's good together. Imagine that. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. I'm not going to worry about the exact amount I'm putting in. Okay, well that's not open enough. God, powdered sugar everywhere. Jesus. Okay. Let's see how we're doing now. This machine actually did come with the kind of a ring-shaped cover that you put on it that kind of covers, it's supposed to cover the bowl so that powdered sugar doesn't fly everywhere, but ever since I put it in the wash, I think it got a little bit warped and it doesn't quite work. Like it'll kind of spew out the side. Not saying this is a bad product, just you get what you pay for, and all the pieces are supposed to be hand washed, and who the hell has time for that? I do not hand wash dishes, thank you very much. That's probably pretty good. I think maybe I'll add a little more just to be sure, but that feels like it's getting pretty, it feels like it's getting pretty stiff. You can have frosting be too stiff, but it's difficult. I had that happen once. I made a, it was a, like, chocolate fudge. Whoa, Christ, that went everywhere. Let me clean up really quick. This is driving me crazy. There is, like, way too much powdered sugar. Okay, I needed to clean up the table because all that powdered sugar was driving me crazy. Hopefully I won't create more. But yeah, I put a little more powdered sugar in here, and I feel like this should probably be enough. I'm not sure that it even needed more, but... There we are. Actually, I'm not so sure about that. It's kind of... I feel like that could be stiffer, actually. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna add more. It sure is hard to get off this spatula. I almost forgot. I was talking about my experience with making cake frosting that was too, oh God, powdered sugar everywhere again. That was too stiff. It was chocolate fudge. It was a chocolate fudge frosting, and oh man, it was the best frosting I've ever tasted in my life. But yeah, it involved like lots of cocoa powder and butter, and you know, like at the end of it, you were supposed to add... I forgot to put the towel on. Oh. Paper towels are in the way. Here we go. At the end, you were just supposed to add milk until it was a good consistency, and apparently I didn't add enough. Also, there wasn't quite enough frosting. I ended up having a very thin layer on the cake, and the cake seemed a little dry as a result, but man, it was still really good. I'm definitely gonna make it for you guys sometime. It was based on a Nutrageous bar. It was a peanut butter cake with chocolate fudge frosting, and it had peanuts and caramel. It wasn't just the best cake I've ever made, it was the best thing I have ever made. And this has a slightly different consistency than buttercream, so it's hard to tell when it's stiff enough. Trying to decide if it needs more. It is kind of like holding up. It's a little floppy, but maybe it's supposed to be. But anyway, about that chocolate fudge icing recipe. I think if I had just used enough milk, I probably would have had enough frosting, but yeah, literally the only thing wrong with that cake is it didn't have quite enough frosting on it. Still trying to decide if maybe this is okay. I want to add a little more. I feel like that's got to be enough. That's... trying to keep the powdered sugar from escaping. Okay, now that's nice and thick. That's like barely moving at all when I take it out. Okay, good. Let me just scrape the bottom of the bowl here. Another baker YouTuber I watch is Gretchen, and she does vegan recipes now, but she didn't always. I've still got some of her old non-vegan recipes. They're really good. A little disappointed when she took her non-vegan recipes off the internet, but I understand. She had to, pay money to keep them up, and she didn't want to do non-vegan recipes anymore, so it's understandable, but it was a bit of a bummer for me. But anyway, what I was going to point out, she used to have a blade like this one, but it had a wiper on it, so it would actually wipe the insides of the bowl, and you wouldn't have to do it with a spatula. That was really cool. I don't even know. It was probably for a KitchenAid mixer, but she didn't seem to have it anymore. But yeah, it was called a wiper blade. I would love to have one of those. Yeah, this frosting. Hopefully it's not too thick now. It actually feels heavy when it's on the spatula, so. Let me whip it just a little more just to make sure it's all, I don't have any little clumps of powdered sugar in there. I obviously didn't sift it, so. Oh yeah, look at that. That's beautiful. Okay. Okay, I'm going to change gears here and go back to the cake. Boy, this frosting really sticks to everything. Maybe it's just been a while since I had cake frosting and I forgot that it does that. Mostly I've just used this to make cookies. This thing is fairly new. I actually got it in a giveaway. From Gretchen, actually. So that was pretty cool. Hey, you can see my face in the food at the same time. Still trying to figure out how to film. This actually looks a little awkward, but whatever. Okay, I've got my cake layers, which are nice and frozen. So I'm just gonna unwrap these. This turntable is really nice to have. Okay, so I'll just go ahead, rather than unwrap both of them, I will just, So what's the lowest point on here? I want to try to cut off as little as I can get away with. I guess about there. And the way you cut a cake is that you start from the outside, and just as you rotate, you work your way in. And think it helps you get the cake a little bit more level than it would have been otherwise. Although, I don't know if this is very level, but, oh, come on. Oh, one downside to frozen cakes, they're a little harder to cut. Come on, where's the... There we go. I cut off a little more than I wanted to there. Crap. Oh. I'll leave that alone for a minute. Okay, now let me do this other one. Of course, ideally you want the layers the same thickness, but if one ends up a little bit thicker, I am not going to worry about it. I'm not used to having to do this. Like I said, I like to use the cake strips, which I like to use the cake strips, which makes the cake nice and level, and normally I don't have to do this. I feel like I'm cutting off more than I wanted to again. That's not level, but woof, yeah, that did not turn out great. Well, it is what it is. This cake is honestly so small that it's probably not a big deal if I can just kind of fill in the middle with icing. So, live and learn, as I keep saying. This is about the size I wanted. It looks tiny, but I'm sure it'll look a little bit more substantial once I get some frosting on it. I kind of don't like, let me see if I can do this without wrecking it. So my cake tins are wider at the top than at the bottom, so these aren't quite as like cylindrical as I would like them to be. So I'm trying to fix that. It's not going to look great at this stage, but hopefully once I get all the frosting on. That didn't work out. Whatever. Hopefully once I get all the frosting on, it'll kind of even everything out and it'll look nicer. Figures the first time I try to film myself making a cake, it's a bit of a fail. I would call it a complete fail, just this could have gone better is all. Move that aside for a second. This is, I don't know how much of this I'm going to need, but what John Cannell did was he actually took cake and a cheese grater, and he used that to make the cake crumbs that are going to go on the outside. So I am trying that. I don't know, not like you absolutely need a cheese grater for this. You could just crumble it up, but I'm gonna, all these like overcooked pieces that are more brown, I'm just gonna take them off. Supposedly this makes the pieces like smaller and more uniform, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of a, this might be easier if the cake wasn't frozen. Make sure my fingers don't get in there. Now the thing is, I don't know how much I'm gonna need, so I don't know. Just keep going until it looks like enough, I guess. So you know what, I'm gonna continue that later when the camera's not running. You don't need to see the whole process, but you get the idea. Cheese grater. All right, so you don't necessarily, okay, well here first of all, here's how I'm starting. Put a little blob of frosting. That's gonna kind of act like glue and hold the cake in place. There we go. here's what I like to do when I frost a cake. To make sure it doesn't get too messy, I like to put pieces of paper towel. Parchment paper works too, but anyway, I just kind of slip it under there. And that way, that way the frosting gets on the paper towel and not all over the cake, the turntable, whatever. Okay, so you can, of course, just use a knife or a spatula to frost your cakes. I like to use a piping bag. It's just helps you be a little more consistent. I will show you what I mean in a second. So you fill up your piping bag. This is gonna squish out the back a little bit. I didn't do a perfect job here, but snip off the tip about that much, I guess. And then there we go. This will work out. It's a little awkward because I didn't put it in quite deep enough. That's what she said. So here's what I like to do. Just like and you see how that's going to end up being perfectly level. If you'd used a knife, it might have been a little thicker on one side or whatever. I should have gone out to the edge a little more. I did not think this through. Okay, so there's our middle frosting layer, and then this is actually a little bit trying to line it up so that the thicker side of one edge lines up with the thinner side of the other one. Let me see how that... I think that's actually pretty level. Okay, so now this is just the crumb coat. You could skip this step if you wanted. Where's my stupid? There it is. Couldn't find my spatula. You could skip this step if you wanted, but I like to do it. Also gives me an excuse to take a break in the middle of all this. So basically, the crumb coat is a thin layer of frosting. And the purpose of it is that any crumbs that are kind of loose on the cake, they're gonna end up on the crumb coat. And after you apply the crumb coat, you're going to put this in the refrigerator or the freezer, whichever. You just want it to kind of firm up. Yeah, since I know this is the crumb coat, I'm not being super neat. Although I am gonna tidy it up before I'm done here. And it's totally fine if some of the cake is showing through too in this stage. Okay, so add a little more frosting. What I'm gonna do is go back and like scrape off the excess, so it doesn't matter too much if I'm using a little too much, because it's basically not gonna stay. That area is a little thinner than it needs to be. I don't remember if I explained this well, but the purpose of the crumb coat is that any crumbs that are loose on the cake are going to end up in the crumb coat. And then when you put on the second coat of frosting, it's not going to have any crumbs in it because they will be all stuck in the crumb coat. There we go. So this is a cake scraper. This is actually a little cheap plastic one I got on Amazon. A good thing to do if you're just like say you've just discovered that you really like making cakes, but you don't want to spend a lot of money on it, at least not yet. You can buy like sets that are kind of meant for beginners, and they're really cheap. This freaking paper towel is actually doing more harm than good, I think. I think I'm just gonna take it off. It just keeps hanging up on everything. Okay, we're not done here. I'm still working on this. So yeah, if you're a beginner, you know, you want to have all the tools, but you don't necessarily need the best quality and most expensive stuff. Like, I mean, this is cheap plastic, but like, you know, it's for scraping cakes. How sturdy does it really need to be, you know? Try to neaten this up a little more. It's getting there. This cake looks smaller than I thought it would. Ah, well, you know, I wanted enough cake for maybe like 2 days. Like we could each have a piece one day and we could each have a piece the next day and then it'll be gone. That's what I was hoping for with this. Oops. Ah. I've actually never made a cake this small. So when you want to level off the top, you just kind of cut it across. This is not totally neat. Actually, I should probably be wiping the frosting off every time. Excess frosting. In fact, it's probably too much frosting on the top. I don't think we need that much. Yeah, that is way more frosting than we needed on the top. I was a little heavy-handed with icing the top of this cake. You know, I've been noticing while making this video, saying all this stuff out loud, I can never settle on whether I prefer the word icing or the word frosting. Let me know in the comments section if you have a preference. I seem to kind of go back and forth. I tend to say I'm making frosting, but then I'll say, or like, I never say ice the cake. I usually say frost the cake. But when it comes to the actual frosting, sometimes I do call it icing. And I don't know. I think I prefer frosting, but I'm just so used to saying icing that sometimes I just say it that way without thinking. Okay. Hope that scraping noise wasn't hurting anybody's ears. It's kind of necessary. Okay, I'm almost done here. At this point, I'm just being kind of nitpicky. We're almost there. I feel like it's slightly lower on one side than the other, but I'm not sure. Okay, I think I'm gonna call this done. I could fuss over this all day because that's just how I am, but let me just one more little pass here and then I'm gonna make myself quit. Okay, now I'm making it worse. Hi, Tara. I got a kitty rubbing up against my legs. I'm surprised she didn't do it sooner. This is the first time she's bothered me since I've started recording. Air quotes because it doesn't really bother me, but you know. Okay, so it's definitely slightly higher on one side than the other. But I'll try to fix that when I do the final coat of icing. But yeah, here's where we are right now. It's ugly because it's a crumb coat. But yeah, yeah, this is good. A good thing to do. I mean, it's not really as necessary for a smaller cake. It's a good idea to lock the crumbs in, but a crumb coat is partly a good idea. Like if you're doing a big cake or a tall cake, sometimes they get kind of floppy, and you know, if there's a lot of icing in between the layers. And so what you do is after you do the crumb coat, you put it in the freezer, and that just kind of makes it a little more stable. So anyway, I'm gonna put this either in the freezer if there's room for it, or maybe the fridge. Either way, either one is good. So yeah, and then I will come back once that's all firmed up and it's ready to get the final coat on it. Okay, so this has been in the fridge for about half an hour, so it's not really all that solid, but whatever. I'm gonna move on here. So, it's another good use for the piping bag. Is that you can use it to get a really uniform thickness on your frosting. Well, it's not perfectly uniform because I'm not doing this perfectly, but I do think it's going to help still. This frosting's getting a little soft. I wonder if maybe I could have refrigerated it a bit. Since this bag got so messy, if it runs out before I'm done, and it looks like it will, I've gotten a new piping bag that I can, rather than putting more icing in this one. What was I gonna say? Oh, I decided to the method I was trying to do with the paper towels earlier. I'm trying it with parchment paper now. Since it's thinner, I feel like it might work a little better, but we'll see. It's also a little more stiff. I don't think. Okay, well that's done. I just feel like it might work better. Okay, so I'm going to do it a little differently this time. I'm going to go ahead and snip it off before I put the frosting in it. I feel like that might help a little. And also I'm going to make it so not so much of the top is sticking up. It's been a little while since I used a piping bag. I kind of forgot the best ways to do it. Might be way more frosting than I need, but that's fine. Okay, so this is a lot. This is way, okay, yeah. This is how you actually fill a piping bag. Okay, let me finish up here. Okay, and we're done. No. Obviously not. Okay. Let me just empty out this piping bag because I'm done with it now. Okay, so now when we take our cake scraper, that little hole is being kind of annoying. That's what she said. Okay. Left some kind of big gaps here. I think it's because this frosting is starting to droop a little. Oh. Yeah, this parchment paper one isn't working either. I swear I've done this before and it's worked really well. I don't know why it's being such a bitch. I guess because I'm filming it. It knows it's being filmed and it's like, bitch, you think I'm going to do what you want me to do? I don't think so. Probably should have started at the top, really. That's how this normally works. This frosting's really soft all of a sudden. Like I said, I think maybe it could have done with being refrigerated again. Okay, well, this has been a fail, this parchment paper thing, so. So I'm not so much trying to scrape off very much of the frosting. I'm just kind of trying to even it out here. Naturally, some of it will come off, but the idea isn't to get as much off as possible or anything like that. I'm really literally just trying to... I keep finding little holes and bubbles in there. It's kind of, I don't know where all that came from. Too many gaps between the layers when I when I piped it on, maybe. I'm not trying to make this neat right now. There's a little gap here I'm trying to cover. There's another hole. What the hell? There's so many. I feel like I just fixed that one and it came back. It's probably a different one. This frosting does not want to smooth out. I don't know why it's being so stubborn. Like I said, it's been a little while. Maybe I just forgot how long this actually takes or something. You know what, come to think of it, the sides don't have to be perfect anyway because they're going to have crumbs on them. So why am I being so nitpicky? As long as they're reasonably smooth, that's good enough. I'm just getting frosting on everything now. This thing is just covered in, okay. Here, I'm gonna switch to a different one. That thing got so covered in frosting, there was like barely anywhere I could even touch it without getting frosting all over my hand, so we're switching to this one. Hopefully I'm almost done. This is kind of ridiculous with how long this is taking. Geez, it may be a little while before I use cream cheese frosting again. This stuff is a pain in the butt. I don't have this kind of issue with buttercream, I'm pretty sure. Again, I don't need to nitpick the sides so much. Okay, I need to just stop. I think this is good enough. I think that'll work. Let me try to maybe smooth off the top just a little bit more. I think that'll work. Okay, so I'm basically done smoothing everything out, thank God. This is going to make a huge mess. But here's the crumb. So yeah, so you can see, here's the inside the bowl. That's all my crumbs. Should be enough. And I think you just kind of take a handful and that's another thing I've never done. I've never actually put crumbs on the outside of a cake before. I'll try to go all the way to the top with the crumbs. As it turns out, I did have enough crumbs. That's good. I figured it was enough. But once again, I've never done this before, so I'm going to put like a decorative garnish along the outside here, just to kind of cover up where the crumbs end, because I'm sure that's going to look sloppy. These crumbs are bigger than I thought they were going to be. I see why John Cannell stressed having very fine crumbs. I feel like mine aren't quite fine enough. Okay, how can I clean this up now? You can't see what I'm doing here, but I'm trying to knock these into the... Boy, I hope the cake is really stuck on this and it doesn't... There we go. I was saying I hope the cake is really stuck on this and it doesn't fall. It doesn't look quite as neat as I would like. Maybe I can press these in a little. Also some little spots where they're kind of thin. Man, cake decorating really takes practice. You watch people do it on YouTube, they can sure make it look easy, but then you try it yourself and it's like, this does not work the way I was led to believe it does. I don't know how I'm going to get this cleaned up. I know what a lot of bakers do. Gretchen used to do this all the time and it was crazy to watch. Like they'll decorate the cake on a turntable and then they'll just stick a spatula under it and lift it up and put it on a presentation plate. And it's like, how? How do you do that without dropping it? I'd be way too afraid to drop it. Would have been nice if I could have left the parchment paper on for this part, but it was just being too stubborn. This is looking a little bumpier than I thought it was. Like I was saying, I get now why John Cannell made a big deal about making sure the crumbs were really fine. Because if they're not, man, it just looks almost furry or something. Okay, I'm gonna like take a damp paper towel or something and try to neaten this up a little more, and then I will be back to finish this up. Okay, we're finally in the home stretch here. The frosting was getting really soft and kind of hard, a little too hard to work with, so I went ahead and put the cake and the bowl of frosting in the fridge. The only thing I did wrong is I should have covered the bowl of frosting. Whoops. I should have covered the bowl of frosting because I feel like I think it might be a little too stiff now, but I should still be able to make it work. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna need, so. Well, of course you don't want to overfill a piping bag either, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Hopefully if I'm very careful and don't get frosting all over the inside of this, I can, So I didn't mention what I did. I did this between filming sessions, but I got out an actual piping tip. So, and I'm just going to do a little bit of embellishment around the edge of the top, and I think probably along the base too. The base doesn't look so bad now that I've cleaned up the turntable, but let me just make sure. Come on, there it goes. I'm trying not to rush through this. It's a little tempting because I'm getting kind of tired and my back hurts. So I'm just going to do a simple, it's actually not coming out quite the way I would like. How about, there, that's a little better. Oh, the crumbs aren't coming up quite high enough there, but I don't think there's anything I can do about that at this point. Actually, well, no, you know what? I still have the crumbs here. If I'm really like super careful, probably not the best idea to do this with my left hand. Also, I got frosting on my finger somehow. You can't even see what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to, I've got a little, tiny little gap in here. There we go. Okay. So I'm just squeezing, lifting, and then letting go. And it's not doing exactly what I would like, but I think it's gonna be okay. There's another little gap where the crumbs don't come quite all the way to the top. I kind of threw all the cake scraps into the bowl with the crumbs, so I'm having to kind of hunt around for the actual crumbs. I'm sure there are better ways to decorate this, but you know what? I think this is gonna look all right. Damn it, I keep finding, I should have gone up a little higher with the crumbs. I put a little too much icing in this bag. I forgot that it's, let me go ahead and just try to fix any spots where there aren't enough crumbs. gonna suck having to clean up those crumbs later, but at least I got them off the... At least I got them off the turntable. Definitely overfilled this bag. It's just plastic, so I'm actually a little bit worried it could split or something. I don't think I've ever had that happen to me, but I know it can happen. This is something like what John Cannell did. I haven't, I didn't watch the video again right before doing this or anything, so I don't remember. But I believe he had a decoration similar to this on the top. Once again, I thought I'd gotten all the crumbs and... Damn, I'm finding little spots left and right where I didn't put enough crumbs. Or rather, more like they didn't go up high enough. I'm just kind of neatening this up a little bit. I think that'll do. I'm getting tired. I don't know if this is going to work, but I want to do that again on the bottom. Actually, I'm not sure I like that, and it's getting crumbs all over it, so I'll show you what I was starting to do. I don't like it, so I'm going to somehow try to get that off. Now, see, now I got most of it off, but there's still a tiny bit of frosting there, and it doesn't look great, so I'm gonna, more crumbs. This is getting to be one crummy cake. Okay, so I think we're done. I'm not gonna stand up to do the outro. My back hurts, and I'm tired, but you can see how this turned out. I think it actually looks pretty good. This is my first attempt at a red velvet cake. I've never tried putting crumbs on the side of a cake before. A couple spots are a little sloppy, but yeah, I think that actually turned out pretty good. And yeah, it does look a little bit taller now that it's got all the icing on it. It doesn't look quite so tiny. It's a more reasonable sized cake now. I'm gonna be getting crumbs off this forever. Since I'm not going to stand here, I'll keep this in the frame. So thanks for watching. At some point, I'm gonna try to film myself cutting this open and eating it, and I'll kind of insert it into this part. As promised, here I am cutting into it. I didn't want to cut it while filming because I made it for Valentine's Day and didn't want to cut it the day before. In the future, I hope to not have to do it this way. A couple little issues. For one, the cake was a little dry. With how much batter I'd put in the pans, it took a while to get the middle to cook all the way through, and I just overbaked it a little. In the future, I will be much more careful about overfilling the pans. It just didn't occur to me that that could happen. Also, with all the scraping I had to do to get the frosting nice and smooth, I scraped off a little too much and the layer on the outside was a little thin. Probably fine for most people, but I like a lot of frosting. Honestly, it was still delicious. That little hint of chocolate along with that little bit of tang from the frosting, red velvet cake is just unlike anything else. Even with the dumb little mishaps I had making this video, I still recommend it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. If there's anything else you would like to see me make, let me know, any kind of dessert. Keep watching. I'm gonna definitely do more interesting and inventive types of desserts later on. I have some that I just sort of came up with on my own that I think turned out really good, so I'm definitely going to make those at some point. I just wanted to start with something simple. It turned out to be a little more complicated than I thought it would be because I made some mistakes here and there, but it is what it is. I mean, once again, I've never made a red velvet cake before, so I think it turned out pretty good. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.